Brock Halloran kicked the gym bag out of her hands before she'd gotten 3 steps onto the mat, and the whole front desk crew laughed like he'd told a joke they'd been waiting all morning to hear. "Whoa, easy." He held up his palms, mock apologetic, while his 2 buddies circled in behind her. "Didn't see you there. You lost? Yoga's the place across the parking lot, sweetheart. Stretchy pants and a candle." The woman bent down and picked up the bag. She didn't say anything. She set the strap back on her shoulder, squared it, and kept walking toward the small mat in the corner where her class was supposed to meet. "Hey," Brock followed. He was 29, blonde, jaw like a cinder block, and he had a way of getting in front of people that made them flinch and step back. She didn't step back. He pointed at the line of her left leg, at the place where the track pant tucked into a running shoe, in a way that wasn't quite natural. "You serious? They hired a self-defense instructor who can't even— what is that, a peg leg? You gonna teach my members how to hop away from a mugger?" His shadow, a wiry kid named Trey Donovan, already had his phone up and recording. The third one, Cody Whitman, was leaning on the squat rack with his arms crossed, grinning the way rich kids grin when they've decided someone is going to be the entertainment. "You don't teach here unless you can fight," Brock said. "That's the rule. My rule. So why don't you show us something, Jimpy, before you embarrass yourself in front of a room full of damaged housewives?" The woman set her bag down by the corner pads. She turned and looked at each of the 3 men, slow, one at a time, the way you'd read 3 sentences you already knew the ending of. Then she said, in a voice that was quieter than the room expected, "Class is at 6. That was it. That was all of it. 41 seconds. That's how long it would take, 26 days from that morning, for those 3 men to learn exactly who they had been laughing at. 41 seconds, filmed from 9 different phones, replayed later more times than any of them could count. But before those 41 seconds, before the lawsuits and the headlines and the law that ended up carrying her name, you need to understand who Naomi Boateng actually was. Because the whole thing only lands if you know what she was carrying when she walked through that door. Naomi was 33 years old, and she had spent the last 2 years learning how to be a civilian, which is a thing nobody warns you is harder than the war. She'd done 11 years in the Army. The last 6 of those had been spent doing a job most people in that gym couldn't have spelled, let alone survived. She came home from a valley outside Kandahar with a silver star she kept in a drawer, face down, a Purple Heart she never took out of the box, and a left leg that ended 4 inches below the knee. The rest of the leg was titanium and carbon fiber, and a socket that chafed in the heat. She'd learned to walk on it, then to run on it, then to teach combatives on it to a room of soldiers who stopped staring after the first week because she put every one of them on their backs. When she got out, the world had no idea what to do with her. She had a resume that said things like Master Resilience Trainer and Modern Army Combatives, Level I for Restrictor. And every gym she walked into looked at the leg first, and the resume never. 4 interviews, 4 polite emails. One manager who actually said out loud that he was worried about liability, like she was a wet floor. She was down to the last of her savings, living in a 1-bedroom in Reno with a folding chair for a kitchen table, when Hal Bruner called. Hal owned Sentinel Combat Club, a 40,000-square-foot glass box on the south end of town, where software guys and orthopedic surgeons paid $700 a month to choke each other in matching rash guards. Hal had a problem he didn't fully understand yet. His women's program was a joke. His liability insurance wanted him to actually have a real self-defense curriculum, and the city's veteran outreach grant required a certified instructor with documented credentials. Naomi was the only applicant in 200 miles who checked every box. "I'll be honest," Hal said on the phone. "My head guys are going to be a handful. Brock especially. He thinks he runs the place." "I'm not there for your head guys," Naomi said. "I'm there for the women." She had one condition. She said it flat, no room in her voice for negotiating. "Nobody hears about my service. Not the medal, not the deployments, none of it. I'm a self-defense instructor. That's the whole story." Hal didn't ask why. He should have. The why was the entire spine of what came next. The truth was that Naomi had spent 2 years being a wounded veteran in every room she entered. The slow look down at the leg, the careful voice, the way people decided who she was before she opened her mouth, and she was so tired of being a story that she decided she would rather be nothing at all. She wanted to walk into a room and just be the woman teaching the class. She wanted the quiet. Teaching was the only thing that had ever made the inside of her apartment feel like less of a waiting room. So she said yes, and she took the leg nobody knew about, and the medal nobody knew about, and she walked into Sentinel Combat Club at 5:45 on a Tuesday to set up for her first class. And Brock Halloran kicked her bag across the floor and called her gimpy in front of the front desk crew. Here's the thing you have to sit with. She could have ended him that morning. She had the training, the angle, the leverage, and after 11 years, she had the certainty. She chose not to. And that choice, the not doing, is the part of this story that matters more than the 41 seconds. Stay with me. The how's the whole point. Her first student was already waiting when she got the mat set. Lorraine Beck was 51 and wore a long-sleeved shirt in July. There were marks on her wrists that were the wrong color for July, healing yellow-green, and she sat on the edge of the mat the way a deer stands at the edge of a road. She'd emailed Naomi before the class with exactly one sentence: "I just want to feel safe in my own house again." Naomi walked over and crouched down to her level, which on the prosthetic took a particular kind of balance she'd practiced 1,000 times so it would look easy. She put one hand on Lorraine's shoulder, just for a second. Lorraine exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the parking lot. The other women filtered in. Diane Ostrowski, 44, a retired Navy machinist who carried her square because the alternative had never been allowed. A pair of sisters in their 60s. A teacher who'd been followed to her car twice. A nurse who worked night shifts. 8 women, average age somewhere north of 45, every single one of them in that room, because someone had taught them what fear felt like, and they had decided to take a piece of themselves back. And across the main floor, Brock watched, and Trey filmed, and Cody smirked, and none of them understood that they had just started a tally that Naomi was already keeping. She taught the wrist release that first night. Slow. 3 times. "The first thing a man does is grab," she told them, voice rough and low and clear. "So the first thing you learn is how to be somewhere else." Lorraine got it on the 4th try and made a small sound that was almost a laugh, and Naomi nodded at her once. And that nod was worth more to Lorraine than anything anyone had said to her in 11 months. Brock walked a sponsorship guest past the mat right at that moment. Loud, theatrical. "And over here's our little wellness thing. We give back, you know. Therapy stuff." He waited until Naomi bent to reset a pad, then kicked it. It slid across the floor and clipped her ankle. "Whoops, you good, sweetheart? That's not real training. That's just hugging." Naomi didn't react to him at all. She walked over, picked up the pad, walked back, set it down exactly where it had been, and turned to her women. Again, watch the hips, not the hand. The sponsorship guest, a man in a gray blazer holding a tablet, had stopped smiling. He glanced at Brock. Brock laughed too hard and steered him away. Trey posted the clip that night. "New instructor at Sentinel. Brock gives her the welcome tour. LOL. 19,000 views by morning." What Brock didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that he had just done that in front of a paying sponsor, in front of 8 witnesses, on a phone, on a Tuesday. He'd left a mark, and Naomi was counting marks. I want to be honest with you about something, because the genre this story lives in usually skips it. Most of these stories make the bad guys cartoons. Brock wasn't a cartoon. Brock was scared. His student count had been bleeding for 6 months. A newer gym across town, with better Instagram, had pulled half his roster. And he hadn't told anyone. And people who are quietly drowning will grab whoever's in reach and push them under to feel tall for a second. That doesn't make it forgivable. It makes it real. Hold both of those. The second week, Cody Whitman brought 2 VIP clients through during her class and stopped dead, pointing at her leg, which had ridden up enough at the cuff to show the carbon. "Oh my God, is that real? You're teaching people to defend themselves, and you can't even..." He laughed and turned to his clients. "This is what passes for staff now. They hire for the grant money, Box gets checked, you know? Diane stood up. You don't talk to her like that. Naomi put a hand on Diane's shoulder, pressed once, the same way she had with Lorraine. Sit. I've got this. She faced Cody. She didn't move closer. She didn't raise her voice. She reached down, calm, unhurried, and rolled the cuff back over the prosthetic, slow and deliberate. And she held his eyes the entire time until the grin slid off his face on its own. Then she turned back to her class. One more time. The women had seen her hand tremble just once while she fixed the cuff. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. After class, Lorraine stayed to fold mats. You okay? Naomi asked her. Then, quieter, watching her face, are you okay? Lorraine's eyes filled. He sounded like my husband, she said. Naomi lowered herself onto the mat beside her, not talking, just breathing in and out steady until Lorraine's shoulders came down from around her ears. That was the second mark. But it wasn't the marks against the women that finally moved her. It was Kayla. Kayla Reyes was 19, a sophomore at the university, and she'd been training jiu-jitsu since high school. Brock had been her favorite coach for 3 years. She had his poster on her dorm wall, but lately he'd gotten meaner. He yelled more. He grabbed harder in rolls. He'd cornered her after class and asked, with an ugly edge, why she kept hanging around the charity ladies on the side mat. On a Thursday in the third week, during an open roll, Kayla tapped early on an armbar because she felt it loading wrong. Brock didn't let go. She heard the pop before she felt it. He held the elbow 2 seconds past her tap, then released her, stood up, and laughed at the ceiling. Trey filmed it. He posted 15 seconds Kayla on the map, gasping. The caption, "College girl bites off more than she can chew." 3 flame emojis. 300,000 views in a day. Kayla came into the gym the next evening with her arm in a sling and made it exactly as far as the doorway before her legs quit, and she sat down on the floor and started to cry. Naomi was beside her in 3 seconds. My parents can't afford a lawyer, Kayla whispered. Coach Brunner said it was an accident. If I report it to the Federation, I lose my standing. If I lose my standing, I lose my scholarship. I lose everything. I'm not going to be okay. Something in Naomi's face changed. Not anger. Anger is loud, and this was quiet. This was older and colder than anger. She'd seen people decide a kid was disposable before. She'd carried kids out of valleys so that they wouldn't be. She picked up a dry erase marker, wrote 4 words on the little coaching whiteboard, and turned it around. You are not alone. I have people, Naomi said. Starting tonight, so do you. That night, she made a phone call she'd been carrying in her contacts for 2 years, for exactly this kind of moment. Patrice Vaughn ran a veterans legal aid office out of Carson City and had told Naomi, the day she was discharged, call me if the world ever decides to come at you sideways. Patrice picked up on the second ring. Patrice, it's time. A pause. Then, calm and fast. Okay, don't start anything. Don't say 1 word more than the situation requires. And starting Monday, you wear a body camera under your patch. Every shift, we let them hand us the rope. Naomi closed her eyes. Understood. The party was the following Saturday, Cody's 27th birthday. Open bar on the mezzanine. 50 people. Loud music, half of them drunk. Naomi had finished her last class at 9 and was leaving when a student texted that she'd left her wallet on the side mat. Naomi went back in. The wallet was there. She picked it up, and that's when Brock, Trey, Cody, and 4 jiu-jitsu guys came down the stairs, loose and drunk, and looking for something to do. They spread out around her, not touching. Just a loose ring with her in the middle, and the exit on the far side of them. Trey's phone went up, and the little red dot of a live stream blinked on. Tell you what, Brock said, swaying. 1 technique. You show us 1 move, gimpy, and you can go. Deal. One of the jiu-jitsu kids slow clapped. Cody threw a fake punch toward her face and pulled it short. She didn't blink. Her resting heart rate, in the middle of that ring of laughing drunk men, was 61. She'd stood in worse rings. She knew the difference between men who were drunk and men who would actually swing. And she knew these men were drunk, and she knew above all that they were filming. So she stood there, face like a stone, and she let them circle her for 4 full minutes. But she wasn't just standing. She was counting. She counted the witnesses. She counted the camera angles. She memorized which kid had thrown the fake punch. She clocked the exact height Trey held his phone. She let them write the whole thing down for her. Then Hal Bruner came down the stairs and saw the ring and the red dot, and went a color his face didn't usually go. Everybody. Upstairs. Now. The ring broke. Naomi walked out without looking at any of them. In the parking lot she sat in her car, with her hands at 10 and 2 and her breathing flat, and she texted Patrice one line. "They're handing me the whole spool." Patrice texted back, "Then we let them." Saturday. The big demo. That's when you let them grab you in front of God and everyone. The body camera came in the mail on Tuesday. Naomi clipped it under her instructor patch, tested the angle in the bathroom mirror, and walked into Sentinel carrying a gym bag that now recorded everything in 4K. Brock had no idea it existed. Saturday was demo day. The biggest filmed event Sentinel ran all year. 200 people on the mezzanine and along the rails, sponsors, a reporter from the local paper. Free cameras on tripods aimed at the main floor. Brock had been promoting it for 6 weeks. It was supposed to be his crown. He wore a fresh black E with a sponsor patch on every panel. Cody sat front row in a tracksuit that cost more than Naomi's car. Trey roamed with his live stream open to a little over 40,000 viewers. Naomi was in the corner setting cones for her 3 o'clock women's class. What Brock didn't see, Patrice Vaughn was in the third row with a briefcase at her feet and a tablet on her knee playing the body cam feed in real time. Kayla sat beside her, sling still on, white-knuckling her own good hand. Lorraine and Diane and 4 of the other night class women filled the row behind them. Naomi's people. In position. On the record. Brock grabbed the mic. "Before we kick off special guest, everybody give it up for our newest instructor. Come on up, show us what the wellness class teaches." The crowd turned. Cameras swiveled. Naomi didn't move. "Come on, sweetheart. Charity round. One move. Don't be shy." "No, thank you." Rough, low, carried. The crowd murmured. Brock's smile went thin and sharp. He stepped off the platform and walked across the main floor and stopped 2 feet from her. "I wasn't asking." His hand shot out and clamped around her right wrist, hard, and he yanked her 2 steps onto the main mat in full view of every camera in the building. And that the grab, the pull, the hand on her in front of 200 witnesses, was the exact moment the law stopped being his and started being hers. 41 seconds. People slowed it down later, frame by frame, more than 11 million times. She let his pull turn into her step. Her hips rotated maybe 3 inches, and her right leg, the real one, reaped through the back of his lead ankle. Osotogari. Oldest throw in the book. His own grip on her wrist became the handle she used to put him flat on his back, and his head bounced off the mat with a wet, flat sound that traveled all the way to the rafters. A woman in the second row gasped. 3 seconds. Trey lunged in from the side. Phone still in one hand, swinging a wide, clumsy hook with the other. Naomi slipped under it, stood as he stumbled past, and caught his neck in the crook of her arm on the way by standing guillotine, snug, no wasted motion. 6 seconds of him slapping at her forearm with his free hand, his phone clattering across the floor and landing lens up, still streaming, pointed at the ceiling lights and at Trey's face going the color of raw liver. 40,000 viewers, front row. 11 seconds. Cody charged. She let go of Trey, dropped low, and caught Cody's arm as he reached, rolled her hips into him, and folded him into a kimura on the way down shoulder, loaded to the exact edge of what a shoulder is, and then no further. She didn't crank it. She locked it and held it, mechanical, patient, while he screamed and slapped the mat 4 times fast. She let go the instant he tapped. 26 seconds. Brock was back on his feet, face the color of a stop sign, gi twisted around his ribs, and he came in swinging a roundhouse with everything he had left, every drop student, every lie, everything he'd ever been afraid of. She stepped inside it, caught the wrist, turned, and dropped him into a straight armbar with her hips up against his shoulder and his elbow against the simple geometry of human anatomy. I tap, I tap, I tap. He screamed it loud enough that the tripod cameras 40 feet up caught it clean. 41 seconds. She let go and stood and stepped back. 3 black belts on the mat. 1 curled around his own arm. 1 gasping on all fours. 1 sobbing into his sleeve. She turned and found Kayla at the rail, sling on, her good hand pressed flat over her mouth. Naomi gave her 1 small nod. I told you. You're not alone. Then she walked off the main mat, picked up her cone bag, and went back to the corner to finish setting up for her 3 o'clock. The silence held for 4 full seconds. Then the room came apart. Phones, voices, somebody yelling play it back, the reporter already dialing, Patrice already typing. Hal Brunner ran across the floor and stopped 3 feet from Naomi and just stared at her, white as paper. Naomi met his eyes for a second, then reached into her bag and handed him a water bottle. Class is in 40 minutes, she said. You might want to clear the mat. By 6 that evening, the clip was on 11 platforms. By midnight, 8 million views. By dawn, every sports outlet in the country had the same headline. Mystery instructor submits 3 black belts in under a minute. Nobody knew her name yet. Nobody knew about the leg, or the medal, or the valley outside Kandahar. In a barracks half a world away, an old sergeant major named Wendell Pruitt watched the clip on his phone, set it face down on the table, and started laughing from somewhere deep in his chest. I'd know those hips anywhere, he said to nobody. Boateng, she's back. Now, if this were a simpler story, it would end there. The bullies got dropped, the crowd cheered, roll credits. But you and I both know the world doesn't let it end there. The world has a second move, and the second move is always uglier than the first. By Sunday morning, the story had flipped completely. At 9:14 a.m., Brock's attorney filed a civil suit and pushed 3 criminal complaints: assault, battery, reckless endangerment. The filing described Naomi Boateng as an unstable employee with a documented history of violent outbursts. It came with 3 affidavits. Brock's Trey's Codizal swearing she'd attack them unprovoked in front of 200 people. At 10:30, Trey uploaded a new cut of the demo footage. It ran 22 seconds. It opened on Naomi's hip turn. It cut Brock's wrist grab entirely. It ended on Brock screaming, "I tap," with Naomi standing over him. The caption: female instructor assaults 3 coaches. Charges pending. 14 million views in 6 hours. At noon, Cody posted an MRI of a torn labrum and a GoFundMe. By sundown, it was past $60,000. By Sunday night, the internet had decided Naomi was the villain. The hashtags turned. A morning cable host held up the edited clip on a loop and said the words clearly, some kind of untreated PTSD on live television. And the truly poisonous thing happened, the thing that happens every single time. Anonymous accounts discovered that Naomi Boateng had been dishonorably discharged for assaulting a superior officer. It was a complete fabrication, pulled out of thin air. It reached 4 million people before a single fact-checker caught up to it. And it landed where it always lands on the people with the least armor. Lorraine's co-workers of the grocery store showed her the clip and asked if she was scared of that woman from the gym. Lorraine left her shift early and didn't come back the next day. Kayla's parents called her at school, having seen only the 22-second cut, and asked if she was being safe around that instructor. Kayla hung up and cried until she couldn't breathe. Monday at 8:14 a.m., Hal Brunner called. "I have to suspend you, pending the investigation. The board met." "I tried, Naomi. I'm sorry." Naomi closed her eyes. "I understand. My women are scheduled tonight. You have to cancel." "No," she said. "Tell them it's paused. Tell them I'm calling each of them myself." And she did, one by one. Lorraine cried. Diane swore for a solid minute. The night shift nurse asked, very quietly, if Naomi was safe in her apartment. Naomi told her yes. It was the only lie she told all week. By Monday afternoon, the district attorney had filed 3 misdemeanor counts. If she lost all three, up to 18 months and counting. She sat at her folding table that night with the lights off for an hour. Then she got up and opened the closet, and she took out the things she'd told one man she'd never let anyone see. A flag folded into a tight triangle, a silver star in its case. A sealed envelope marked DD-214, the full, unredacted record of 11 years of service that the public had never been allowed to read. She laid all three on the folding table. She took a photograph. She sent it to Patrice with one line: "Authorize full release. All of it." Patrice texted back inside 90 seconds, confirmed. Filing in the morning. They have absolutely no idea what's coming. While the country was busy crucifying Naomi, Patrice Vaughn was working 19-hour days. She'd already filed the discovery motion at 4 in the morning, demanding the original Trey Donovan livestream and its metadata, all of Sentinel's interior security footage from the prior 90 days, Brock's social media archive going back 5 years, Kayla Reyes' medical records, and a federal request to the Department of Defense for the complete service record of Naomi Boateng. She'd subpoenaed Trey's drafts folder and his deleted folder. By Wednesday, she had everything. The original uncut 4K from Trey's phone, with Brock's wrist grab plain as day at the 14-second mark. The interior security footage showing every accident, every shoved pad, every cornered student, going back 3 months. And the body cam, Naomi's own, rolling under the patch, 4 weeks of slurs and threats, and Brock saying out loud on tape that the only reason the cripple got hired was the grant money. And then the record. Naomi Boateng. 11 years, 2 combat deployments, a Silver Star earned the day an IED took her leg for dragging 2 soldiers out of a burning vehicle under fire after she was already wounded, refusing evacuation until both of them were on the bird. The lie about a dishonorable discharge dissolved into nothing. The second the actual paper hit the docket, she hadn't been thrown out. She'd been carried out, on a stretcher with a flag and a medal waiting at the other end. The hearing was the following Tuesday. Patrice didn't argue much. She just played things in order. The original clip with the grab. The 90 days of security footage. The body cam, with the gym's own head instructor explaining on tape exactly why he'd targeted the woman he targeted. And then she set the service record on the table and let the room read it in silence. The DA dropped all 3 counts against Naomi before lunch. By the end of the week, the same office had charged Brock Halloran with assault and with reckless endangerment for Kayla's elbow, and had opened a perjury inquiry into all 3 affidavits. Cody's GoFundMe got pulled and refunded. The cable host, who'd said PTSD on a loop, issued a careful, lawyerly apology that nobody believed and everybody noted. The internet, which had spent a weekend deciding Naomi was a monster, spent the next month deciding she was a saint, and she found that version almost as exhausting as the first, because it still wasn't her. It was just a story pointed the other direction. Hal Bruner offered her the head instructor job. She turned it down. Instead, Naomi took the civil settlement, and there was a settlement, a large one, and she did the only thing that had ever made sense to her. She opened her own place, a small storefront on the north end of Reno. Blue mats, no posters of anyone on the walls, 1 framed photo above the front desk. 3 soldiers smoked behind them, all 3 alive. She put 3 plain words on the sign over the door, still standing. Every class was free for women veterans, for survivors of domestic violence, for any woman who walked in with a referral from a shelter or a VA caseworker. The night class became a day class. The day class became 7 days a week. Lorraine Beck, who had once slept with a knife under her pillow, started teaching the intro session on Wednesdays, and the women who came in flinching at sudden movement learned from a woman who used to flinch too. Diane ran ground recovery on Tuesdays. Kayla Reyes, shoulder-healed, became Naomi's first assistant coach and taught beginner jiu-jitsu on Saturday mornings to 15 women, half of whom cried in their first session, and every one of whom came back. The curriculum, Naomi uploaded the whole thing to a plain website with no ads and no copyright, free to anyone. Women in 17 states started circles using it. The hashtag number still standing crossed 2 million tagged posts in 4 months. People got the words tattooed on their forearms. It came to mean something specific. I am still here, and I am still choosing how I use what I survived. 8 months after the hearing, the Nevada legislature introduced a bill. Every version of the press called it the Boateng Act, requiring annual background checks for certified martial arts instructors, mandatory reporting of student injuries, and disclosure of prior conduct complaints. It passed both chambers. The governor signed it on a Tuesday morning at still standing, with Naomi 2 feet behind him. She didn't speak at the signing. She didn't need to. The year out, the gym opens at 6 in the morning. The mats are blue and worn in the right places. There's no poster of anyone on the walls, just the one photo of 3 soldiers who are alive because of what one woman's hands did in a valley nobody back home could find on a map. On a Tuesday, Naomi teaches a beginner class of 12 women. Half of them are veterans. 2 are mothers whose daughters were assaulted at school. 1 is a federal prosecutor learning ground recovery on her lunch break. After class one morning, a young woman stays behind to roll mats. Her name is Renee. She's 22, just out of the army, 3 weeks at still standing, and she hasn't told anyone in the class why. She rolls a mat, glances at the line of Naomi's left leg, and finally asks the thing she's been holding for 3 weeks. "Coach, how'd you lose it?" Naomi doesn't flinch. She crouches down. Easy. Practiced, and sits on the mat beside the kid, the titanium and the bone settling at the same angle. She looks at the young woman a long second. "Pulling 2 of my guys out of a truck that was on fire," she says. "Rough, clear, steady. And I'd do it again before I'd do anything else with these hands." Renee nods slowly, doesn't speak, and sits down on the mat next to her. They roll the rest together in silence. On a shelf in the little office behind them, 2 things sit side by side: a silver star, no longer face down, and a retired body camera with a small square of black tape over the lens. 2 tools, one for surviving, one for proof. Both of them still in service, just in different ways now. I'm telling you all of this because I have watched the world look at a woman and decide who she is before she's said one word decided. From a scar, a limp, the color of her, the way her voice sits when she's tired. Naomi Boateng never should have had to prove she deserved a room. The world made her prove it anyway, and then the world tried to take the proof and turn it into the crime. She won't tell you that part bitterly. She'll just tell you she's still standing. So here's what I'd ask. If you stayed with me this long, tell me down below about somebody in your life who got counted out before they opened their mouth: a co-worker, a neighbor, a quiet veteran on your block, a woman in your own gym carrying something you can't see. Tell me their name. I read everyone. And if you know somebody who's ever been told they were too weak, too damaged, too broken to stand in the room, send them this. They should hear how that sentence actually ends. The lights come up slow over the blue mats. The door is unlocked at 6, and somewhere, a woman who was supposed to disappear is teaching another one how to stay. I keep coming back to the 4 seconds of silence in that gym before the room came apart, because that silence is the whole thing to me. Naomi dropped 3 men in 41 seconds, but she'd spent 26 days not dropping them, and the not dropping is what I'd want my own kids to understand. Anybody can swing when they're angry. The hard thing, the thing almost nobody learns, is to know you can end it and choose to wait until waiting is the only honest move left. She had the leverage on day 1. She used it on day 26, and only after Brock Halloran put his hand on her in front of 200 cameras. That gap between what she could do and what she let herself do is where her whole strength actually lived. I think about why it fell apart for Brock the way it did, and it's not complicated once you look. He was scared. His gym was bleeding students, and he never said so. And a scared man who won't admit he's scared will always reach for somebody smaller to stand on. Every cruel thing he did on camera, in front of witnesses, because cruelty makes people careless. That carelessness was the rope. Naomi didn't trap him. She just held still and counted while he handed it to her, foot by foot. Cause and effect doesn't care how loud you are. It only cares what you actually did, and the footage remembered every bit of it. The part I'd press on a young person, though, isn't the takedown. It's the patience underneath it. Naomi clocked the angles, kept the body cam rolling, kept Patrice Vaughn's number on her phone for 2 years before she ever needed it. That's not luck. That's a person thinking 3 moves past the insult, while everyone around her is reacting to it. And when the internet flipped overnight and decided she was the monster, she didn't argue back into the noise. She let the record do the talking, because she'd had the sense to keep one. And then there's the simple refusal to quit. A woman who lost a leg, got told no by 4 gyms, and could have taken every reason the world handed her to disappear, and instead got up at 6 every morning and rebuilt herself on titanium and stubbornness. When they suspended her, she called every one of her students by name and told them it was paused, not over. People like that don't win because the universe is fair. They win because they outlast the version of events that says they should fold. That's what I'd leave anyone with. Be the person who refuses to be cruel even when you have the power, who thinks clearly when you'd rather just react, and who keeps standing back up long after it stops being dramatic. Kayla Ray's learned all 3 of those from one quiet woman who was supposed to vanish. She didn't. Neither do you have to.